People from Reddit, what dark secret are you hiding from everyone? Story number 1. After my parents got divorced, my stepdad basically moved right in and started abusing me. I knew it was wrong deep down somewhere, but figured since he was an adult, he knew what he was doing and to trust him. One night my sister caught him red-handed and flipped out and told my mom. Cops came and he got arrested. I was only like 9 to 10 years old, so a lot of it is a blur. At first my mom had me sleeping in bed with her at night and was babying me, and I loved it. One day, months later, we were walking home from school and we saw me dad's van sitting outside of our house. We weren't allowed in and we saw garbage bags sitting outside. My dad told us that my mom had called him earlier in the week and told him that if he didn't come and get us, she'd get rid of us. She wouldn't come out and talk to us, and I cried. My dad lived in another state, so this meant we'd have to leave our friends and our hometown. Our friends ran after the van as we drove away. For a few years she wouldn't talk to us because she had allowed my stepdad to come back, and that's why she stayed away. Guess she didn't want to face us after what she'd done. She'd chosen a man who'd abused her child over her own children. Eventually we had a relationship with her again, but she was so sick. The funny thing is that she's in a really high-up position for one of the largest banks in America. Professionally, people think she's amazing. She's a monster. I finally had the courage to cut her out when I went into recovery from heroin addiction 11 years ago and haven't spoken to her since. A few people know this story, but not many, and it felt good to get it out to the world. My life has flourished since cutting her off. People always say how I need my mom. Don't be scared to boot family out of your life, just see their family. Story number 2. Pest control technician here. You're paying too much for pest control. Whoever you hired, unless it's a fairly small company, they are ripping you off. Unless you have cockroaches or bedbugs, YouTube it. Times are hard enough right now. Story number 3. Not a huge secret in comparison to some of these answers, but I feel the guilt of it often. After my fiancée passed, I napped all the time for over a year. My aunt was calling me one day and I just denied her call, went back to napping. It was my aunt calling because my grandma, who was very sick with cancer, wanted to say happy birthday a day before my birthday. Grandma died the next day. I should have picked up the damn phone. Story number 4. My uncle owned an old Camaro that collected dust in his garage. When I was around 10, my family and I were in town visiting and I wrote the word duck in the dust on the hood of the car. I used my thumb so that the letters were fatter than my normal index finger. A few hours later my aunt/uncle asked us who did it, and I proved it wasn't me by showing how the person who did it had bigger fingers than me. Taking that shit to my grave. Story number 5. One of my closest coworkers, who is an integral part to our very large corporation, killed a man in his late teens and threw the body in a lake. He only got off on a technicality. I work remotely, so I don't build a lot of personal relationships with people I work with regularly. I googled his full name. It freaked me out at first. But I've kinda gotten over it. I wondered if anyone else knows. It happened 40+ years ago. He will retire soon and then I might ask another coworker about it. I just don't want to stir the pot. Story number 6. My girlfriend started selling used pants and stuff online. Someone wanted used insoles from her shoes. I walk for about 6 hours at a time at work and often just put her insoles in my shoes. Those perverts are getting off to the smell of my sweaty feet thinking it's a girl. Story number 7. My grandpa was stationed in Okinawa, Japan during the Korean War, while in the Marines. He hooked up with a woman there, and she got pregnant. So, I have a Japanese aunt and a few cousins, in Japan, whom I've never met before. Story number 8. 6 years ago when I was 24, my mom randomly told me I have an older half-sister that my dad completely abandoned. She only knew of my sister's mother's name, so I searched for her on Facebook and found my sister. She is the spitting image of our father, so I knew immediately it was true. Both my sister and her mom confirmed it, and my sister and I immediately started bonding. We are incredibly close now. My father's side was overjoyed when I found her, as they knew of her but never what happened to her. We've all welcomed her with open arms, except my father. When she reached out to him, he essentially told her to fuck off, then screamed at me that she wasn't my sister, and continues to call me the girl that ruined the family. Her and I did 23andMe and we matched as half-siblings, so now there's no denying it. I lost a shitty father but gained an incredible sibling that means 10 times as much more to me. Story number 9. I'm living with my mom right now cause she's going there cancer, but to be honest, I can't wait to see her go. It sounds horrible, but I'd rather see her go than see her suffer even more. It's not like I would get anything out of her will, it's more like it sucks cause she's always in pain and seeing her like that brings me pain. Story number 10. I've been accessory to both my parents' infidelity. At age 5 my mother cheated on my dad while he was deployed, and my brother told me what was happening and that I shouldn't tell anyone. My father slept with his secretary 2 years later, for a few years, and would even bring me on dates with her, telling my mother we were going to the movies. He took me to her house and had her roommate watch me while they went out or just hung out in her room. They're still married. I don't know if either know the other did the thing or if they still are doing the thing. Story number 11. My wife and I aren't officially married. No one knows. We had a ceremony and everything, reception, the whole 9 yards. We just never did the official paperwork. We realized that since she's going back to school, it benefits her financially to go through financial aid as single rather than married. When she finishes up, we're going to head over to town hall and finish the last step. Story number 12. Ever since my daughter took her own life, I have been hiding how much pain I'm really in. My family is beyond dysfunctional, so it would create more crap for me to deal with. Although, I did tell my mom to gargle donkey balls yesterday and that made me feel slightly better. Story number 13. I fell off a roof at work yesterday. I fell about 8 foot to my side and head. I was rushing and was being overconfident. I told my partner I fell on ice because she worries that I work alone. I could have died and no one would have known where I was until my body started to stink. Story number 14. I've been an addict my entire adult life. I used to drink all day, every day. Before work, at work, and after work. I'd occasionally fall asleep on my lunch break or leaving work and have to make up some illness to friends and fam who were concerned. Today marks 185 days sober. Story number 15. 2 days before my dad took his life, he called me telling me what he wanted to do. He had been calling me and telling me how depressed he was for months, and I was sick of hearing it, and I hung up on him. I hung up on my suicidal father. He then ended himself on my 17th birthday. Everybody in the family thinks it was coincidence that he took his life on my birthday, but I know the real reason. I've never told a single member of my family as I know they would blame me, especially my brother. Ever since he took his life, I have this recurring nightmare of seeing my dad in a grocery store passing at the other end of the aisle. He's pushing an empty shopping cart and briefly looks at me at the other end of the aisle but keeps going. When I run to where he was, he's now at the other end aisle. Rinse and repeat until up. Wake up screaming. Some secrets will haunt you until you die. Please consider subscribing to see and hear more of these stories. Thank you and see you next time.